Germany
This
and
has to be
Luxembourg
the widest
have the
border on
border.
Earth. This is by Reality Explained. We always talk about the longest border or the shortest border, but never the thickest or the thinnest for that matter. Like in terms of the actual width of the international boundaries, like I bet you it gets even thinner than this. Maybe the Netherlands and Belgium has the record. It's just as thin as this cross on the ground. But how exactly are we going to have the widest
This
border?
is because
this
Germany
a
and Luxembourg
river?
kind of changed the rules of bordering.
Okay.
You see, the border between the two is...
Germany loves to change the rules of borders around them, usually by force, but let's see how they did it here.
It's a river, the Moselle River, and usually when a river marks the border between two countries, a standard middle point is used. But in this case, instead of the middle line,
does it change
the border is actually the entire river.
Whoa.
The river is considered to be part of both countries, making it a condominium.
Okay.
And the same applies for the islands and the bridges across the river.
So those are shared?
What's interesting is that if we move south, we'll pop into the tri-point border between Luxembourg, France, and Germany, which is located in the middle of the river in the village called Schengen, which gave the name to the Schengen area.
That's ironic. Oh, is that where it comes from? That makes sense. So the world's thickest border is actually like the entire river itself. I wonder where the origin story of why they decided to do that comes from. It's definitely a pretty thick river at certain points there, and it's also definitely a long one as well. Arizona and California do this with the Colorado River. Yeah, but those are US states though. Very interesting. I had no idea that Schengen was actually a town. Remember in Europe, this is referred to as the Schengen area, and all these places have officially abolished border controls at their mutual borders. Europe is unique in terms of geopolitics. I like the various agreements and the general diplomatic relationships between countries. The widest border in the world, North and South Korea hold my DMZ. Well, as far as the DMZ goes, or the demilitarized zone between the two Koreas, this isn't exactly a border. Like, I mean, there is a border in there, but then there's a lot of space that's not officially considered a border. I think that would be the difference, but it depends on how you define it. How Spain and France are changing their borders.
Which is continuously changing because
obviously,
of the conflict
the war
between
zone
the two countries.
causes Russia and Ukraine to
the borders
change.
in Europe have remained unchanged in recent years, but that's not
This
actually
is
true.
Very interesting.
You see,
I feel like there's always like an asterisk next to a lot of these YouTube geography shorts. Like they sell these videos like it's one thing, but it's not necessarily always the case. So I'm kind of trying to figure that out right here. Like what's going to be the, I don't know, the catch, I guess. Where's the catch? Like, you know, France and Spain are not at a war. They're not
but in
war.
a different way.
Is it because of a river or something, a river that's constantly moving? It's probably something else, but
the Bidasoa River represents the northern part of the
Oh my God, that's okay. Well, here we go.
Border between Spain and France. And this island here called the Pheasant Island is located exactly in the middle of the river.
Island in the
because
river.
neither France nor Spain agreed to give up the island. The two countries decided to share it.
Yeah,
and
they share it every couple years. They give
6 months every year.
The
Pheasant
every 6
Island
months.
is the world's smallest condominium, being governed by Spain from 1st of February to 31st of July. Then becoming part of France from 1st of August to 31st
It's kind of
January.
reminded me of the Canadian-Danish war they had for that random rock up there. Yes, the Whiskey War, that's what that was called. But that was definitely different. I mean, they were kind of like peacefully and playfully taking this random island back and forth. Whereas it sounds like France and Spain are willfully giving it to the other person every 6 months. This is such a small island, though, overall.
From 1st of August to 31st
Kind of funny that they do this.
Changing this way the border between Spain and France.
It is impressive just how, like, diplomatically, I don't know, like, you see the craziest diplomatic relationships form in Europe nowadays. I mean, obviously, in history, it was such a continent of so much war, but now they're able to achieve diplomatic things that is unheard of in any other continent around the world. What country do you from? When? What? Where are you from? Spence. Oh, now I get this first comment. Okay, so if you lived on that island, which I don't think anyone actually does live on that island, but when are you from which country? I should have specified Western Europe is able to achieve incredible diplomatic situations. The Balkans, not so much. That's kind of the weird stepchild in the family of Europe that, you know, kind of gets neglected. They're a little crazy. Kid, where were you born, Dad? Fran. Imagine sleeping in France and waking up in Spain. There's a lot of alcoholics that do that. Waking up on the 31st of January, bonjour. Waking up on the 1st of February, hola, amigo. Okay, these comments are pretty amazing. Do you live in Spain or France? Yes. Unfortunately, though, no one actually lives there. To be fair, I don't know how would they. It's not a whole lot of real estate to work with. Absolutely love these video topics. Why Russia's biggest weakness is their geography. And this really explains why Russia acts the way it does right now. now and why they've acted the way they've done in history. It all comes down to geography. It always does. Russia is extremely flat over here. It is very easy for another European power to just invade and take a bunch of their land. I mean, it's happened historically a lot with the French, with the Germans, obviously. These maps really put into perspective what Russia sees. This is Europe as viewed from the former USSR. This really shows, like, look, Europe has all these mountains, all these people. Meanwhile, you got no natural defenses. You got the winter, yes, but that only comes once a year, obviously. Russia currently is saying a good defense is actually a good offense over here. This, of course, is part of the reason why they really, really do not like NATO expansion. So let's see exactly what this video is going to get into.
The western part of Russia is located on the North European plain, which makes the defending of its western border almost an impossible task.
That's why most of the time when you do see, invasions of Russia, they all get really deep in there. The French, we obviously talked about the Germans, but also Poland. There's just been so many successful invasions of Russia. The problem is holding that stuff again.
As there is no natural barrier against any invaders, as it was proved in the...
But still, I mean, Russia doesn't like that. Just because, they did get all their lands back and they ended up winning so many wars, they had a bunch of their land destroyed and burned down to the ground and all that. Like, they still don't overall want to be successfully invaded like that and then have to kick them out, years later.
Napoleonic Wars.
It's a losing strategy.
That's
even though
also
they win the
reason
war.
Why Russia's relations with the West are so cold, as it was invaded multiple times on this route by Germany, France, and Poland.
There we go, all three of those examples. And then obviously you can go back to the Great Northern War with Sweden in the 1700s.
Russia has a big problem with the access to the ocean.
Yes.
Arctic Ocean being completely frozen almost the entire year.
Yes, this is also a massive deal. I feel like so many people have covered this. That's why they wanted Crimea. They want the Black Sea, but even the Black Sea is not enough for them. I mean, here's some of the major seaports Russia has access to. There's this one next to North Korea, but the problem is that's in the middle of Siberia. It's hard to get things to there or from there. You got Crimea, and they just recently lost this one in Syria because Assad was just toppled. That's an absolutely massive L that they just took recently. The issue is, in Russia's perspective, these ports still suck because the one in Crimea now, you still have to go through Turkey, who is obviously in NATO. You got to go through the Mediterranean, through other NATO nations. There's the Strait of Gibraltar. Like, it's still not safe. There's the Baltic Sea that is also the Baltic NATO lake now. Like, they're still having to pass through a lot of kind of aggressive countries. They have to pass their ships through their sea territory. Ideally for them, they would love to take over the Nordic countries like Finland, Sweden, and Norway. That way you just have a port where you could just sail out into the Atlantic Ocean, not have to worry about anything. Wow, why Russia has been looking for a warm water port for 319 years. Now, climate change might definitely be changing that for them.
Almost the entire year. The only way for Russia to access the international waters is through its Black Sea ports.
Yes.
But the routes in and out has to go through the Bosphorus Strait, which is controlled by NATO member Turkey.
Yes.
Also, the Baltic seaport of St. Petersburg
and the same
is pretty
thing.
much isolated.
Also, they have to go through now Finland and Sweden is in NATO, and that's the same thing for Kaliningrad. Kaliningrad really doesn't help them that much either.
The only way out is through the Danish Strait,
and the Danish Strait,
another NATO member.
Yep. Like I said, maybe taking over those Nordic countries, which obviously they're not going to be able to do that. Those nations are now all in NATO. I just don't see how they can fix that situation. Actually, no. Their current plan is to maybe make a way through Iran, who's kind of a political ally at this point. They can ship goods to the Caspian Sea, sailing to Iran, and then from Iran they can get access to the Indian Ocean down south. Still, even this, it's extremely complicated situation. It's not as easy as just shipping all your things to, I don't know, Los Angeles port like the US can do, and then sailing out into the Pacific Ocean. They still have to make sure that Iran stays a friendly nation, which it's possible that it doesn't one day. It's funny because the thing that makes Russia the most powerful, their geography, is at the very same time the thing that makes Russia so weak. If Sweden joins NATO, then the entire Baltic Sea is surrounded by NATO, and that is exactly what happened. Russia has 3 strongest weapons. That's December, January, and February. Yeah, right now. The guys never heard about Russia's nuclear icebreakers that keep Arctic navigation around the year. Yeah, but still, the fact they have to use those, that's still very, very costly. Not ideal. Imagine how much this thing costs. People talking about this port, but like I said, that is a nice warm water port, but it's all the way from where Russia really is. This is really where Russia exists. Yes, this is all Russia, but this is actually where Russia is, the western side. It's like the same thing for Australia. People think of Australia, they see this entire continent, but in reality, Australia is actually just these coastlines here. That's really it. Why Russia is afraid of Finland. Oh boy. I'm selling Finland, by the way. Check that link in the description down below or go to makeship.com to reserve yours today. There's Estonia as well.
It's become the 31st country to join NATO after almost a century of neutrality.
Yes.
Finland joining NATO more than doubles the
common
border
that's the thing.
Between...
They, we talk about Finlandization, which happened during the Cold War. The Soviets just kind of allowed Finland to be this neutral nation.
Russia and NATO.
But now it's not neutral
in case
anymore.
of war between these two,
And
Russia will have to stretch
NATO has added a massive new border with Russia. Before it was just, along these Baltic states. Russia's going to have to go defend this now, inevitably.
Defense line all the way
or at least
to
have
Northern
some
Europe.
defenses.
Besides
which is
that, Russia's second largest city,
so many
St.
additional
Petersburg,
miles.
will be under direct threat of NATO troops.
Yes.
The entire Gulf of Finland will be under NATO control, meaning that the Russian Baltic fleet will be almost completely neutralized.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Putin's plan to stop Ukraine from possibly joining NATO, it really did kind of backfire, because then you made Finland and inevitably Sweden afraid for their sovereignty.
And the link with Kaliningrad is becoming extremely fragile.
So NATO just expanded.
Joining NATO used to be a red flag for Russia. But today, seeing the actions in Ukraine, more countries are more scared of being neutral than Putin's warnings, which will lead to other countries entering NATO.
That's the ironic part. And then we'll have to see what happens with the peace deal with Ukraine. Is the western side of Ukraine eventually going to join NATO? I'm sure he doesn't want that, but maybe that's what we'll see in like 10, 20 years. I like how Russia's threatening other European countries to not join NATO can be responded with, what are you going to do, invade me? Yeah, you kind of leave those people with no other option. Russia warns countries not to join NATO or they'll attack you. Other countries join NATO so they won't be attacked. Also, Winter War, historically, right before World War II, even during World War II, Finland was able to defend itself quite handily. Yeah, I don't think there's any chance Switzerland ever joins NATO. They're just too safe in their mountains right there. Yes, there was a time where Russia wanted to join NATO too back in the 50s. They weren't going to let that happen. That was a 4D chess move, though, imagine. Because look at two NATO countries like Greece and Turkey. They're two NATO countries, but they'd be fighting. How does the Netherlands continue to increase its territory? Well, we already know that they're masters of the sea. They're literally water benders from Avatar, and they're going to continue to do it.
To shrink in size even more by the present time. Instead, this is how the Netherlands look today. It expanded its territory with 18% in the last 700 years.
18%, and a lot of their current population live there.
The spoils of a war, but not with a neighbor country, as it's usually the case, but with the ocean. The final blow the Netherlands gave to the ocean was this massive dike built in 1932.
Dang.
This enclosure dike is 32 kilometers long, and by
they're the only country maybe not concerned about climate change. That's actually not true, but I know that's what the jokes say.
They actually transformed the sea into a fresh water lake.
Wow.
They drained out the salty water, while this river continuously provided fresh water instead. What's truly amazing is that these polders here, Flevoland polder and the Noordoost polder, didn't exist before the Afsluitdijk, and represent the new land of the Netherlands created in the last 90 years, which is around the same size as the metropolitan area of Paris.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, they just do such incredible things. They love talking about per capita, because they're not obviously a very big nation in terms of population, but it's amazing what they're able to achieve. Netherlands have border problem with sea. MFers have a border dispute with water. Netherlands want to expand. That's nice. Germany wants to expand. Uh-oh. Every other country having war with each other. The Netherlands, Poseidon, I declare war. Dutch people are engineers by birth. All those videos are by Reality Explained. Please go check them out. And here are my patrons.
I finally escaped from Drew's basement.
Lucas, the Canadian Christmas Goose,
Honk,
Argentinian Grandpa,
I'm back,
DOOCHBAGGINS.
Imperial
Japan flag is the same as modern Japan.
Koyle,
please stop making this mistake.
Amateur
Archaeology,
aPhatNarwhal,
Connor Pavlik,
Pavlik,
DaBeautiful-MEGAN-Underwood,
Fredrik Tibblin,
InquisitorXarius,
KingBearHaze,
Tambre,
Mexican
ZaneyBoi,